All right, everyone, welcome back to the ZHP Garage. Hope you guys are all doing well. Working a little bit remotely again, but this time not 350 plus miles away. We're just about an hour away from where we are in San Diego, so we are working on this 64 Impala right here, which if you follow our Instagram, and I think I posted it on our Facebook as well, then you will have already seen it. Pretty much at the end of taking it apart, but you're gonna have to stay tuned in the video to see what we're doing to this thing. Doing a little bit of remodeling on the 350 small block that's in it. So, what do you got, Master Mechanic?
Come on back, check it out. I'm just gonna clean this thing up, get it ready, go back together.
Like the Master Mechanic forgot to say, go down, hit the like button if you have not already, and also hit the subscribe button if you're new around here. Let's jump right into this thing, and we're gonna check it out.
On this episode of Chevy Impala, we're gonna be, thing's got some crazy oil leaks, so we're gonna be resealing this thing. We're gonna change the intake. We're gonna fix some of the wiring. We have wire issues. You can see these wires all over the place. He's having issues with the starting when it's hot, so we're gonna fix some leaks. Could change some stuff around, get it fixed up, get it running right. It's got a high idle. I think it's got a vacuum leak right now, but I didn't start it. It's just such a mess. So we're gonna tear this thing apart. We're gonna do a compression test. He wants to make sure that the engine's mechanically sound. So first we're gonna take the ignition off. It's got this big old air cleaner. You see it's got this adapter. Normally it's adapters for quadrajet intake, the quadrajet that adapts it to a Holley, and I think they have it on backwards. I didn't take it off yet, but I think it might be a vacuum leak around here. But we're gonna be doing away with it. We're doing a performer intake. So I drained the coolant. I got the petcock open right now. I gotta catch all the old stuff. So we're probably gonna put a new hose on it. I don't like the way this one's routed, but we'll see. We'll save it for now. So we're gonna be replacing the plug wires, the cap and rotor and everything. Spark plugs. We're just gonna pull these off, get the plugs out of it. The guy told me to do to it what I would do on my own car, so we're gonna get it straightened out. This thing's gonna be running. This is when you know you got your ignition set up good, is when you can just rotate it to get all the hold downs for the cap off of it. See how this one has, this is a cheaper cap. This is cheap terminals. Putting a better cap on it with the brass terminals. Better conductor, better flow. Better power flow. All right, so we took the heater hoses off, and you can see there's two different sizes. So there should be two different size outlets on the intake. So this one should be bigger. They're both the same. So this hose is barely holding on there. So make sure you pay attention to that if you're ever doing your heater hoses. Tuck these out of the way. We're gonna replace these, but for right now, we're just leave the hose on it so it keeps it from dribbling everywhere. You can see he's having issues with this thing starting. You see this starter wire, got a really good connection. But you can see that it had a little too close to the manifold. So it's kind of hard to put current through a wire when it's hot, because then the resistance goes up and there's less voltage that goes through the wire. So that's his starting issue right there. So we're gonna get this all fixed. So this wire here just fell out of the terminal on the starter, but this is on the post, on the outside post that you would normally, it's all melted too, that you would normally use if you had a points and you would jumper 12 volts, but this goes inside the car, so I don't know what's going on with this thing. This wire is not doing nothing. So we're just gonna eliminate it at this butt connector, since it's all melted and everything. We'll have to figure out what's going on with that later. Yeah, it's got nothing to do with the ignition, so we'll get that melted wire out of there. We're gonna change the valve covers. We're gonna take the valve covers off, and then we're gonna take the spark plugs out of this thing. Using a 5/8 spark plug socket. And by looking at the plugs, it kind of give you an idea of the condition of the engine. Actually, that one looks pretty good. Got a pretty good tune on that one, not too bad. See if they all look the same. All right, so we got all the spark plugs out. Looks pretty good. They're all the same brand. Got a clean, consistent burn rate. So that's a good indication the engine's healthy. Looks like the jetting on the carburetor is pretty good. You can see this valve cover came off this way. It's actually supposed to be on there that way. Somebody had it on it upside down. It's still gonna seal, but it's not the way it's designed to be on there. So I said that these valve covers are on the wrong side, just to show you what I'm talking about. This one was on this side. These tabs are supposed to be on top. So this valve cover should have been on this side, the valves with the tabs on top, and then this one that was on that side should have been on this side. It doesn't matter. The angle is a little different, so I mean, it'll go on either way. It goes to show you, if somebody's working on your car and they put the valve covers on backwards, what else do they screw up? You know, it's something to think about. So I'm gonna get this carburetor out of the way. I want to see if it's actually leaking. Had a vacuum leak at the base down here. Pull this off, see what's going on with it. Check this out. Look at this good linkage. The only thing holding it together is the return spring that's stretched out. No bushing in there. The carburetor's all wallered out. So you gotta make sure you use 2 wrenches on your fuel line but also just twist the line all up. You can see this line. Seems like everything on this car just wasn't quite done right. Almost kinked pretty much in half. I don't even know how much fuel is getting through that thing. We're doing a different air cleaner, so we don't need this adapter. Let's get this carburetor off of here. So the adapter looks like it's on there the right way. So I want to leave the distributor in it because the distributor drives the oil pump. And I'm going to be turning it over to check all the compression. So I want the oil pump to continue to run while cranking. So now I'm going to do the compression test before I pull the distributor and the intake all the way off. So today I'm going to use a little to crank it. One terminal on the positive, one terminal on the starter solenoid. Crank it over by hand. So we'll put this on the positive. Then we're going to put the other one on the inside post of the starter so we can bump it over by hand. See? Now we do by hand, right after we take this fuel line off so the fuel pump doesn't pump to nobody. Get our adapter. We can use a short one and the gauge. Just gonna check all cylinders. So we'll just start right here in the front. So you want it to turn over. So it has four. It's got to do four. So there's 4 cycles to a stroke. So you got to have the engine turn over enough that the piston goes up and down for 4 cycles. So you want to hear like 4 rhythms of the engine to get accurate compression. Normally if you had a carburetor on it, you'd want to have the carburetor butterflies wide open, but being that it's off, it's wide open. We have all the spark plugs out so it turns over consistently. Right after that, fuel pump stops spewing fuel on me. So I was got 160. So we just got done doing the compression test on this thing. It's pretty good. It's between 145 and 160. So it's not bad. So the engine's in good shape. So now we're gonna pull the distributor out, get this intake off of this thing. Pulling the distributor out. I got a distributor hold down bracket that was loose, but the bolt's hard the whole entire way. Must be too long and they bottomed it out. We'll see here in a minute. 1 million years later, I think they did. I think they got the extra long bolt and it bottomed out. That's why it wasn't tight. Because it is hard the whole entire way. I don't think it was leaking at the valve cover. I think the intake. I think that oil pressure gauge right there is where it's all leaking from. An intake gasket. Holy guacamole. Oh my gosh. It's like an endurance run. 1 million years later. Ah, got it. Got it. Got it out. Got it out. That looks like that's what happened. Looks like it bottomed out at the bottom of the intake. No wonder it's hard coming out. I had to beat it with a hammer. If you want to get a rag or something when you pull your distributor, just pull it up. It's gonna drip. Looks good. Gear looks good. Plays a little on the high side, but it's okay. If you're ever wondering about the mechanical advance, so if I hold the distributor gear so it doesn't move, this is your mechanical advance. Here, I'll take this rotor off, you can see it. So we're putting a new rotor on it also. You can see this here, this is your mechanical advance. So if you hold the distributor gear so it doesn't turn, these weights fly out, faster it spins. And it advances the rotor. Well, that's where you want to check your total timing. You want all this timing, all the advance in your distributor when you say your timing is total. So we got all of our bolts out. Now we're going to pop this intake off of here. It might be glued down, so you kind of got to get in here and work it up. So I normally just grab here and stick my finger in the distributor hole, pick the whole guy up. Trying to see why it had the high idle, but it could just be an adjustment issue. Maybe a turn spring. We had a lot of oil leaks, and you can see that the silicone pretty much non-existent on both sides. Oh, never mind, these rubber gaskets. That's probably why it's leaking. These rubbers get squished down. They get all hard and brittle. And on top of that, it looks like this oil pressure line is loose. The combination of these two, this thing had a crazy oil leaks. So we're gonna take this all apart. I'm gonna change this to a copper line. So I'm gonna reseal all this and clean this up. We don't have the intake yet, so I'm gonna leave the valve covers and the intake off of it. And then we're gonna take the front of it apart because we're changing the timing cover and the water pump, and the power steering pump is leaking, so we're going to change the power steering pump, and we're going to reseal the oil pan. Next, we're going to clean this up a little bit, reseal this. So we're going to put some rags in the valley so none of this dirt and debris and garbage falls down in the engine. So you can catch all this debris and tuck it up underneath the heads on the intake here. You don't really have to worry about plugging up the ports. If you're just careful, it's not that dirty. Stuff's not going to fall in there, but it's pretty much going to fall into the valley here. So you kind of want to put a little bib on it. I like to have another one, and you can, as you scrape it, you can kind of catch it and direct it where you want to go so it doesn't fall into the engine. Use a scraper, you can use a razor blade, works really good. Silicone, you want to make sure you get all this old silicone off of here. You just put the trash in the center here. So it's been a little bit, been working on this for a little bit. I got the heads cleaned up where the intake goes in the block, and I resealed the back. It's got an adapter for the gauge, and then it's got an electric, you know, the light. It's got a mechanical gauge. Mechanical gauge had a nylon line and it was leaking right here, so I'm gonna put a copper in it. So this is all resealed. And then I was bringing the harness back for the wiring, getting rid of the old resistor wire, and I noticed this harness was hanging down there, and it was for the temperature sender, and they got these wires, you got them both put together. Not the way that works, but they're all melted from hanging down behind the head. So we're gonna get that straightened out. It's got the sender on the side of the block. We're gonna probably switch them because the mechanical temperature gauge was in the intake. So I'll probably put the wires down the intake and then put the probe in the head. So I need to repair the two wires for the light, for the sender, for the coolant temp. We got our starter wire straightened out, shortened up to the point all the meltedness and everything is out of it. We're gonna have to lengthen it now. I'm probably gonna come down right here with the ignition wire, bring them together and come behind the block so it's away from the manifold, away from the heat. And I can't remember where this one goes to, but I don't need it. I gotta trace it back. Probably goes to the heater box. He was talking about the tack not working. Normally the tack wire for the center is a green wire, so I was checking this thing out, but then I noticed they got it like spliced in here. So I gotta see what's going on with that. I don't like that at all. It's bare wire, and this one's just twisted around it. So I gotta see what's up with that. But that's the headlight harness. So I don't know if that's where they're trying to get the gauges to come on. I haven't looked underneath the dash yet. And then I'll show you on I took the water pump and stuff off. The power steering pump is leaking, so I gotta take that off also. We're gonna change the cover. But I wanna show you on the water pump. There's a water pump, but they only had 3 bolts holding the fan on. Well, obviously it's supposed to be 4. And it looks like they're the wrong bolts because it stripped all the threads out of it. So we gotta get some bolts now for the pulley, and then the upper bracket. We gotta get a new bracket. I don't know why they cut this one. They clearanced it for something. So we'll get a chrome bracket to match. Then on the carburetor here, and I guess they needed a fitting really bad. They just used one out of their airline. They got an air fitting. We're not gonna use this. We're gonna cap this because it's before they had 2 PCV valves. So they had one in the front, one in the back. You only need one. So I'm gonna cap this, put the PCV off the front, and then the intake will have the power brakes. So that's pretty much where I'm at right now. So next I'm going to take the lower pulleys off and take the timing cover off of it and get the front of the engine cleaned up. I gotta take the power steering pump off and double check to make sure the one I got is correct. So I'm gonna take pretty much the front of the engine off. I'm gonna get this hose out of the way, off the radiator, get a new hose. The hose is pretty weathered. So we're gonna pull the dampener off the engine. So I just got they call it a steering wheel deluxe bull grip, just a puller, just a generic puller. So we're just gonna use a puller and we're gonna pull this dampener off. You wanna get it even as possible. So just run the bolts down all the same. We're gonna see how hard this is on here. See if my little ratchet will take it off. Let's give it a go. Oh, not gonna do it. There it goes. Just like that. There's a dampener. Pretty all right. You gotta watch these little rubber isolating, kind of cracked, weathered, but they get all rotten out and then your dampener separates. Doesn't look too bad. I think it'd be all right. Now that we got the dampener out of the way, we're gonna take the timing cover off. We're putting a new one on. Normally you're gonna wanna take the oil pan down. Either take it off or drop the front of the pan down because the front lip goes in, the timing cover goes over the oil pan gasket. But we're replacing both. We're replacing the pan gasket and we're gonna replace this cover. So we're just gonna take it off. So we're just gonna pull it out of the, I didn't mean to do it with that quite authority, but see how it hooks around? See the pan gasket came with it. We're wanting to put this back together. It's really hard to get this all in there without it leaking because this gasket tries to fall inside the oil pan lip. So we're gonna leave this off. I wanna put the new cover on it, and then later I'll take the oil pan off and put the gasket on it. See the timing chain, it's got a double roller. It's actually good shape, it's not all loose. So the engine looks really clean inside. So that's really good. The guy says it runs well. It's just having some performance, some tuning issues. So I just noticed, because this thing runs a short water pump, you could see where the water pump's pushing on it, it's pushing the center in. You see where the cam bolts were rubbing on the inside of the engine here. Now that I put a smear, you can't really see it. You see where the cam bolts are rubbing the center. So I'm gonna have to do something with those cam bolts. Change them or take them out and grind them down and get a little more clearance, because we don't want the bolts rubbing the cover. Keep that in mind if you're running a short water pump. So before you scrape the gasket off, you want to put a rag or something around the timing chain so this gasket material doesn't fall into the chain and behind it. Kind of the same as the intake here. So I'm gonna get this cleaned up. I'm gonna pull this power steering pump off. So it's pretty much the end of this what we're gonna do on it today. So next video when we come back, we'll be putting it all back together, all the new stuff. So hopefully we'll have the intake by then and you'll see what it looks like done and how it's gonna run.
All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. The Master Mechanic is finishing up right here. Hello, sir.
What's up? What's up, everybody? How you doing?
So we're gonna come back for a part 2, so stay tuned. If you have not already, hit the subscribe button so you can stay tuned on the channel.
Hit everybody.
And check out the other videos we got. So what do you got?
Pick that one right there. This is a good one right there. That's a good one.
All right, I'll see you guys all next time. Take care.